guys, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Social League. My name is Madeline Garces, and I will be your moderator for today's show. We all know that there's a great importance in understanding the knowledge of and around contraceptives amongst the youth. So today on our panel discussion, we're going to dive into that. But right before we do that, we have to pay our rent. So stay tuned for our daily promo ad. Welcome back, viewers. So today on our panel, I'm joined by three lovely guests. So first on our panel, I have Dr. Amesho. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, Madeline.
And then before I continue, Dr. Amesho is a medical practitioner. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And then we have Rejoice. Welcome, Rejoice.
Thank you.
Rejoice, you are the founder and the editor-in-chief of After Break magazine.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Mr. Clivert. Welcome, Mr. Clivert.
Well, thank you very much.
And Mr. Clivert, you are an advocate in the youth and community development of human rights, or you are a human rights activist, and you are a advocate for the youth development. Is that correct?
Youth and community development.
Youth and community development.
Yeah.
Too many things, sorry. But okay, so I think, as I mentioned before, we are going to be diving into the topic of contraceptives around or amongst the youth. So I just want to read a bit about it. So Namibia has a population with 2/3 below the age of 35 years. And the national teenage pregnancy rate stands at 19%, which means that about every fifth woman aged from 15 to 19 began childbearing. Imagine that. But with that being said, I'm going to jump right into it. So I would like to ask, Doctor, do you think that the youth is educated enough about contraceptives?
Marilyn, thank you for the question. Well, to start with, what is birth control? That's the question. Well, according to scholars who are well versed on the topic of gynecology and obstetrics, they've described or defined birth control to be a method that is used to prevent unwanted pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And this means that one can engage in sexual activity without the fear of having an unwanted pregnancy, right? And to get back to your question, I feel like we don't really have much education in Namibia on the topic of contraception, or if the education is there, or rather the information is there,
Mm-hmm.
then it is not it's not taken up by the youth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And or perhaps there is information, but then there's no access to the information.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be that the information is there, but maybe the youth are perhaps ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? So we need to, if we're going to find a solution, we need to walk around all three areas of providing the information, making sure the information is accessible,
Mm-hmm.
and also trying to give awareness to the youth to receive this information and use the contraceptives.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Rejoice?
Well, technically speaking, if we're talking about the Namibian youth, I personally feel like we are not educated
Mm-hmm.
on contraceptives. Looking at the statistics that we as a nation recorded earlier this year of around about 3,600 teenage pregnancies, I
Mhm.
personally feel like we are not as educated as we're supposed to be.
Thank you. Mr. Clivert?
Well, I'll probably disagree with the doctor a little bit.
Okay.
And also agree with the doctor regarding the information being available.
Mhm.
Myself, I think one of my hats, I'm a president for a youth-led organization, or a network rather, that's in more than 24 countries in Africa, and I'm the president of the Namibian chapter, which is called AFRIAN.
Mm-hmm.
And AFRIAN stands for African Youth and Adolescent Network on Population and Development. And the whole mandate of AFRIAN is advocacy around access to information, access to equitable and quality health services for young people and adolescents. So to answer the question in regards to the information or around birth control, is it available to young people? Is it accessible to young people? Yes, I would say yes and no. Okay. Accessible when it comes to urban areas. For example, in Namibia, I'll make an example. Since the inception of the curriculum, which we call the comprehensive sexuality, next, not sexual, a lot of people really misconcept this word, sexuality education, because it's talking about your bodily autonomy. Since the inception of this curriculum, which obviously it derived from the commitment that the government has made at ESSA level, which ESSA level is Eastern Southern Africa. And all 24 countries, Namibia being one of them, made commitments on that more than 10 years ago, that this information should, or this education, or this curriculum should be comprehensively packaged and delivered to the learners and the youth in the school. And since the inception of this curriculum, we have seen a decrease, a major decrease in many regions. Angoina is one of the regions that I can refer to, that really the teenage pregnancy has gone down. We have seen an increase in knowledge and increase in making decisions when it comes to young people. So yes, it is available, but again, it is available, accessible. I mean, it's accessible in many ways. I myself, I'm the captain of the Condomize. It's called the National Condomize Campaign, that is partnered by the Ministry of Health, UNFPA being the supporter, Africa, NAPA, and Ministry of Youth. Again, this will make contraceptives available to young people out of school and sometimes in schools, and also through the comprehensive sexuality education that is obviously spearheaded in school by Staff for Life. It's one of the civil society organizations. But because of harmful cultural norms and traditional norms, we have that pushback in the communities. And this is why today if you look at because of the lockdowns that were initiated last year due to COVID-19, we have a lot of young people that fell pregnant. And these young people were at home, mind you. So because of these cultural norms and still the conversation that is not really relaxed,
it's quite
between
taboo,
child and parent-child, the parent-child conversation, I think there is where we can say the accessibility, the knowledge, not only for young people, but for parents as well, because sometimes you have a young person that's educated in the house, but you have an ignorant parent that does not want to have that conversation to happen. Now, let me park this for now, so before I take off.
Okay, you mentioned something about accessibility. Do you really think that it's accessible, considering that in schools, kids are being taught not to have sex, opposed to being given all the information of and around sex? So do you think that, what role do you think the schools play when it comes to giving learners or the youth information about contraceptives, and basically teaching them and educating them about these things? Because at the end of the day, education is key, regardless of the fact that people want to suppress certain things and keep kids from certain things, opposed to giving them all the information that they need, so that they are aware. So what role do you think schools play in this?
Through the curriculum, we call them life skills teachers in the schools. Their job, as instructed even by the curriculum and also by the Ministry of Education, is to give the right information so that learners are able to make informed decisions.
100%.
So to give the right information in regards to when to choose to have to engage in sexual activities, and when you choose to engage in sexual activities, what you must look out for.
4 years.
and the right age
Mm.
and the right time. So this whole information is accessible to the learners in the schools. And educating the learners that, do I really have to make the choice of really engaging in sexual activities now, or can I wait until I'm at the right age? But the reason why the curriculum gives the information so that learners are able to make informed decisions is because you will have learners that are living in certain areas in the country that are living between a rock and a hard place, whereby, unfortunately, they engage in transactional sex because they need to survive. You find in certain regions that I don't want to mention, where this young girl is the one that's the breadwinner for the house. And it's in Namibia here. So you give her this information also for her to be able to make a decision to say, can I have a negotiating factor here instead of engaging in sexual activities? So in regards to accessibility, I think the Ministry of Education has been doing enough justice, or good justice rather, maybe not enough, but good justice rather, to make sure that there is really access to this information.
Thank you. Rejoice?
I will agree with Mr. Clivert, but I think as much as schools do teach us, when you go back home, parents hardly speak to their kids about this. So it's either they're going to do it behind their back, or they're not going to do that all because they're scared of their parents or what they're going to say about it. Because I think in the African culture, talking about such is not for kids at all. It's a thing of, only big people are allowed to do it. So yeah.
Thank you. Doctor?
No, I also agree with Mr. Clivert and Ms. Rejoice with regards to what they said. Like I said, he did mention that there's a subject called life skills. But I feel like with regards to teaching in school, that there should be enough emphasis put on sex education in the school as much as they put emphasis on, for example, mathematics, biology. They should treat it with the same respect. And I feel like in the schools, sex education is treated more like on the periphery. They do teach it, but not, like I said, with enough emphasis.
Yes.
So I think our teachers and our community members, also like she said, our parents at home, need to actively engage in talking about sex and making sure that the youth understand what is going on, because there's a difference. You just teach something at school with no emphasis. You teach it, but people don't really, like I said, the uptake is probably low because they don't really understand the implications around it. So it should also not just be in the school, at home also the parents need to actively engage in talking about sex. When they see maybe their children become teenagers, then they need to bring in the talk of sex, like he said, so that they can make a well-informed decision. Yeah.
Okay, that's correct. Now I wanted to ask, what age, we spoke about life skills, at what age do you think is the right age for children to be taught about contraceptives?
Well, I feel like they shouldn't really be, I think adolescence is when a child is from 10 years old, right? So I feel like when the parents notice that maybe the child is becoming mature, or if they see a change in behavior, then they can already start engaging. In the talk. Rejoice said that parents think it's a taboo, but it's more risky for you not to talk about it with the child than to actually just have the courage to speak to the child about these contraceptives and everything, so that by the time they're teenagers even, they already know what to do, so that by the time they start engaging in sexual activities, they will do something with some some backup knowledge, knowing what they're doing more and how to protect themselves. Exactly. Yeah, so I think it's not really about a certain age. It depends what circumstances are. Yeah.
Joyce?
I also think that there is really no specific age, because sometimes we find that doctors give young girls contraceptives to regulate their periods, which can be at the age of 12. So I think that only the doctor will be able to make a choice to make sure that they do not potentially disrupt the young girl's cycle.
Okay. Mr. Clivert?
What Rejoice is talking about, she's talking about the age of consent that doctors are aware of as well. And in the schools, we have what we call the school wellness policy. And the school wellness policy informs the age of consent. It talks about the age of consent. Part of the commitment that was made by the governments, the 24 governments. And the age of consent gives consent in regards to information, gives consent when it comes to HTS, HIV testing and services for HIV testing and counseling. And that age of consent is 13. So
13.
13. So that's what's regarded. I will never say that it's the right age to give information because we have heard we've seen in our papers where we had 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds falling pregnant. So you cannot really say that it's at this age, but 13 is the age of consent that at this age, as a young girl, as a young man, I am allowed to make a decision to get tested. I'm allowed to make a decision to have access to contraceptives because I feel I am in the right age or I'm ready to engage in sexual activities. Now, that's age of consent where you as a child, as a young person, you are given that platform. However, with at 13, obviously with supervisory or with the consent also of the parents as well. But it should come from yourself that you are allowed to access these services. Yeah.
Okay. Some parents would probably say, or I've actually heard it myself, some parents believe that if you give your child early access to contraceptives, it could make them more promiscuous, or it could make them, start doing these activities behind their backs. What's your stance on that?
This is it's a very difficult question, but yet a very good question as well, because and the answer I'll give to this is that I think as parents, parents must be more concerned about their daughters and their sons having access to information and to the services that are provided by the government, and concerned also about having conversations. Why I'm saying this is because this is a fact, whether we want to believe it or not. You can never stop a child from having, whether a girl or a young man or a young girl, from having multiple partners or even engaging in sexual activities for that matter. We have seen in many schools, and I will say it here on this platform, where girls and guys are making appointments that in this period, I'm free and you are free, let's meet at the toilet.
Oh, wow.
That's without the knowledge of the parents or the teachers as well. These things are happening. They are happening. We need to understand that they are happening. So the word promiscuous it's well, I don't want even to answer that because it's a decision that one has to make, him or herself. But I don't think we can blame it on the access to information. I think we have to thank our government that it has made that decision and had that conversation to actually agree to the commitment of providing access to learners in the schools and young people. Yeah.
Rejoice?
I agree with Mr. Clivert. Parents don't really know what their kids are up to, so I think the best thing for parents to do is just to make sure that their kids really do know that, there are contraceptives and this is how you can use them. And yeah, because you can't really know what your kid is up to.
Okay, doctor?
I feel like most parents are probably defensive because they want to protect their children, which makes sense. But also we need to be careful not to be subjective on the matter, because we need to think about the implications, the long-term implications. I mean, for example, if a girl falls pregnant, or even if either a girl or a boy contracts HIV, that's a long-term implication on the child's life. And therefore, parents need to really think about not being judgmental and talking to their children. But also, I feel like sometimes maybe parents think that if they speak to the children about sexual activities and contraceptives, then maybe they may be misinterpreted as giving them the go-ahead to do it. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So maybe that is why they're reluctant to engage in such talks. But it's really important, like Mr. Clivett and Mr. Joyce both mentioned here, that we really need to make sure that we engage the children, because I mean, at the end of the day, we want them to make well-informed decisions.
It's
Yeah.
exactly a point that I wanted to emphasize on, because depriving them from certain information just puts them in the position to make decisions where they don't have complete knowledge around
Uninformed
it.
decisions.
Uninformed decisions. Thank you, Clivett. So uninformed decisions. You're making choices that you don't know could harm you in the future. Because getting pregnant at the age of 15, it's not ideal.
Traumatizing.
It's very traumatizing, and it forces you to become an adult before your time.
Exactly.
But another thing that I also wanted to ask, Doctor, was other than what are reasons that teenagers could get contraceptives for, other than preventing pregnancies?
Well, most times they also receive contraceptives for acne, because I mean, it's like adolescents get into puberty and they start breaking out. So we usually give them the contraceptive to control the hormones, to balance the hormones, and just to reduce the acne.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's also another reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another thing that I also wanted to ask was, what are some of the side effects or disadvantages, side effects that contraceptives can have on a teenager specifically?
Okay, well, it depends, because there's quite a wide range of contraceptives that are available. We have, for example, from the use of condoms, we have the patch, we have the Implanon, which they put inside on your arm, and then we have the interval monthly injections. Yeah, so side effects can range depending on your system, of course, from headaches to nausea. Other side effects can also be weight gain, which, I mean, some people don't want to gain weight, especially teenagers, you know how they are.
Yeah.
So those are some of the side effects. And also mood swings can also be a side effect of contraceptives. But it's usually just in the first few months, and then after a while, the body should be able to adjust.
Yeah. Okay. Are there ever people who come and want to use, let's say, the pill, for example, and then they use the pill, and then they come back and then they say, no, this is actually not working for me. Can I use something else?
Yes, actually. I've had, when I was still working in state, we've had several patients who would come in. Let's say they put the implant on which you insert, and then they come back, they're like, no, doctor, please remove this. I think it's not ideal for me. I want to try something else.
Oh, okay.
You know, so we just advise them, and we see what works best for them. But usually before we give them the contraceptive, we give them the advantages, disadvantages, so that they make a well-informed decision and choose what they think is ideal for them. But you do get those some patients who do come back and request for something else.
Oh, okay, thank you, Doctor.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have definitely reached the end of our panel discussion. If you have any final words that you would like to give to our viewers or to the youth that might be watching this episode today, Doctor, maybe we can start with you.
Well, and final words, mainly for me, I think it's just for the teachers and the parents especially, to start with, that please don't be reluctant to talk to the youth. Be free to speak to them and give them the information that they need. And also the youth should not be shy. Don't be shy, especially when you're doing things behind your parents' back, for example. Read the information, find out what you need to use, and use what you have at your disposal. And in that way you can protect yourself, because I mean, we all have goals and dreams, and you don't want that to be interrupted by anything before you get to your finish line.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joyce?
I just want to say that we as the youth shouldn't be shy. If we think our parents are not talking to us about it, I think we should bring it up to them. Or you can just simply grab your mom and go see your doctor, you know.
Or go see your doctor by yourself.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Doctors are very welcoming.
Mr. Clivett?
Well, what I want to say to Dr. Josephine already spoke to the parents and the teachers, and I'm very happy you brought that out. But for the young people, our government has done, the Namibian government, I commend the Namibian government, it has done a lot to make sure that really or to try and make sure. I'll use the word try because I feel we still have a lot to do. But for the young people out there, please get access to that information or access the information that's provided to you. Do not be ignorant about it. Do not be afraid to go out and get tested. And yeah, and get vaccinated.
Get vaccinated.
Guys, get vaccinated. Man.
Get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I think today on our panel, very important points that we made was that educate yourself or grasp the information that's accessible to you. You know, make informed decisions. Don't be ignorant. And yeah, so thank you so much to the panelists that joined me today. And thank you so much to our viewers who tuned into today's episode. We will definitely see you guys next week, same time, same place.